Mary C. Dillon, in her book In Old Belair, described the summer of 1863 in the following manner.
The June of 1863 was no less lovely and peaceful than Junes had always been in North Cumberland Valley. Little did nature seem to know or care that the great Southern general was even making ready an army of invasion to despoil her of her beauty. Only 9 months since the Army of Northern Virginia had crossed the Potomac, and now Lee was preparing for another crossing with a more powerful army, whose goal should be not Maryland, but Pennsylvania.
When the war broke out, a wave of patriotic support for the national government swept Carlisle. A few Dickinson College students from the South returned home to enlist and fight for their home state, but others deliberately stayed behind to avoid enlistment. Many Pennsylvanians attending the college had already enlisted in the Union Army and were joined by hundreds of other men from Carlisle. Carlisle was the leading market town, the site of Dickinson College, and the center of social and political life of the county. It was home to Carlisle Barracks, where Northern and Southern cavalry officers had once studied and strategized as friends. National and regimental flags and banners flew proudly throughout the streets of Carlisle.
It's a rallying point for, a country or society. You had your regimental flags, and those became precious. Many of the soldiers just would rip off pieces of their flag just so they had something.
However, this period of enthusiasm was soon to come to an end. "The rebels are coming, the rebels are coming," echoed warnings heard throughout the communities in Cumberland County. But for Carlisle and several other of those communities, it was soon to be a reality. James W. Sullivan noted the following in his diary.
All idea of defending the town was soon abandoned. Carlisle traced the occupation successfully of Hagerstown, Chambersburg, Shippensburg, and Newville. When at last columns of Confederates actually marched into the west end of our town, there were panic-stricken persons who could not realize it was so until they saw it for themselves. There they came, only a few hundred yards away. For a brief fraction of a minute, we beheld the picture spellbound.
After the outbreak of the war in 1861, news began to travel describing the elegance and postures of both Union and Confederate forces. 4 weekly newspapers were published in Carlisle at that time, and on occasion, some were sympathetic to the Southern cause. One source of these views may have resulted from connections formed with Southern officers who had been previously stationed at Carlisle Barracks. However, word soon spread regarding the very ungallant appearance of the Confederate soldiers. Mary C. Dillon described the men as follows.
These men were ragged and rough-looking, grimy with the dust of the road, unshaven and unshorn, with no pretense of being in uniform. Battered old hats and coats of every cut and color and texture made them a motley-looking crew.
By June 27, 1863, many in Carlisle had fled to Harrisburg out of fear for the coming invasion. However, for those few hopeful Carlisle natives that chose to stay behind, the invaders provided a true glimpse into the nature of war. General Ewell's entire army of 20,000 soldiers now held Carlisle under his control and would not leave until June 30th, 3 days after the invasion. James Sullivan described the following.
These mess groups attracted galleries of spectators. From the soldiers came civil, even gentle replies. How did this war get started anyway? No one seemed to have an answer ready. That line of talk was not kept up. Not a word of rancor, of recrimination, or boasting, of menace, of bitterness did I hear that evening. We others realized they felt they were going to their sacrifice. In the morning early, they were gone.